Oh, Wendy, thank you so much for being with us here today. I really appreciate you making the time. I know we're at National Convention.
Yeah,
Everybody's so busy.
absolutely. Super excited to be here. They're super honored to be invited, so thank you for that.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and
A
what you're
little bit
about?
about myself. So I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, California, specifically raised in South Central Los Angeles. My parents are both immigrants. They were undocumented immigrants in the early 70s. And I was first generation college student, first in my family to even graduate from high school. And I'm a software engineer. I'm actually a software quality assurance manager. And I've been in SHPE since 2001, since my freshman year in college myself.
So a little bit over 20 years.
A little bit over 20 years. Yeah, I'm definitely dating myself.
She doesn't look an age a year over 20 for our listeners who are just on the podcast. So obviously, when people think of an engineer, they don't think about, a girl who is from South Central LA.
Not at all.
Right? And so how did you get interested in STEM in the first place?
Oh, so this is a funny thing. So I was always that kid that was taking the radio apart, taking the VCR apart, also dating myself. For those who don't know, VCR, old school video cassette recorder.
Before DVD players.
Before DVD players, before Blu-rays,
Yeah.
right? But I was that kid that was always taking things apart. My dad was always tinkering with cars because we, grew up pretty poor. So we always had cars that needed work on them. And my dad would always just do the work himself. And I was always helping him. So that kind of sort of sparked the curiosity of always being hands-on, always doing something. But what really sparked my interest in computers, particularly, was when I was in high school. As I mentioned, I grew up in South Central LA. I'll be honest, I was always a bit of an introvert. Plus, I was afraid to be out in the crowd with all the other students, particularly with the gang members and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah.
I kid you not, the principal and the school secretary were my best friends. The math teacher was my best friend.
Yeah.
So I hung out in the office a lot. And one time they were actually upgrading the school information system. They were upgrading the computers. They were installing software. And because I was hanging out in there, I started peeking over the guy's shoulder. And I started asking so many questions like, well, what are you doing now? What does that do? And what does that do? And what does that do? Like, oh, that's cool. What does that do? And I asked so many questions that he finally looked at me like, do you just want to do this? I'm like, I can do this? He's like, yeah, sit down. So I sat down and he just told me what to do.
Wow.
And the fact that I got to program everything and that I got to type everything, and I just thought it was so amazing that there was a secret language, right?
Yeah.
In order to be able to communicate with the computer and tell it what to do, I was hooked. That's what did it for me. So this was in high school. Prior to that, I had never really toyed too much with computers. I mean, I grew up in South Central LA, so we didn't have computers. And if we did, it was like an old 80s IBM in the corner that nobody touched.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So, but yeah, that's what did it for me.
Yeah. So just to clear up, for people who might not know, especially because it's different now than it used to be, but South Central is one of the most, if not the most dangerous area in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so, that's where a lot of the gangster culture came about and NWA. And all those
NWA,
things,
yeah.
right?
They're more from Compton, but still.
Yeah.
Ice Cube always talks about South Central.
Right. Yeah. So it's this whole thing. But the fact that you were able to find that interest and passion in a STEM related field, it means that anyone can come from anywhere to be able to find that path in engineering or STEM as a whole. So I think that's incredible. So obviously you had the interest, you had the passion for it, and then you had a little bit of experience given to you by that person who was installing that software.
Yeah.
But that's not all that's needed, right? There's a huge, that's like the spark that starts the fire. So how did you go about making this a pursuit of yours?
For sure. So interestingly enough, I was not a traditional college student. I didn't go to college immediately after high school. But when I finally did go, I walked into a counselor's office like, hey, I know I should go to college. Don't know exactly what I want to do, but I know I want to do something. And I originally thought I wanted to do psychology. So I started taking some psychology courses, and that was what I initially signed up for. But then from having multiple conversations with my advisor, they're like, you're in the wrong major. Like, you really have this knack for computers, and you really have this knack for technology. Like, you should go this route. And the more questions he asked me and the more he advised me, the more it really made sense. That is where my passion is. That is something I find really cool and something that I think I could have a lot of fun with. And so then from there, I experimented with some intro courses to computer science. And like I said, I was hooked. And that's what did it for me in regards to choosing that as my educational and my career path.
Wow. So What was that path for you between high school and college? What prevented you from going to college? And then what actually made you decide, like, this is it, I'm gonna do it?
Honestly, I would say lack of direction. Lack of direction in high school for me, lack of direction in my upbringing. Like I said, my parents were immigrants. My mom has a third grade education. My father has a sixth grade education. They both grew up in poverty in Mexico and El Salvador. So it was more along the lines of like, when you graduate, you just got to get to work.
Yeah.
Get to work, start paying the bills, start, taking care of yourself. I moved out when I was 18. So I had to take care of myself, pay my rent, pay my bills and stuff like that. So I was all about work for many years. And it wasn't until my mid-20s that coincidentally I ran into a high school friend who had graduated and was doing really well. And so seeing that high school friend who also grew up in the hood managed to do something with themselves, and I'm like, okay, well, what am I doing with my life? And that's what made me turn around and decide to go to school. Like, okay, I should go to school. I should do something with my life. There's more to life than just growing up in South Central LA and paying the bills.
Yeah.
So it was just like, that's really what did it for me.
And I got to say that I do think that's amazing, because there's a lot of people who feel like if they don't go to college right away after high school, they're not going to go to college at all.
Absolutely.
And so they do get into that. And that's a very common, first generation mentality. It's like, you got to work as soon as you're done with high
Yeah,
school.
absolutely.
You got to help the family. You have to feed yourself. You got to make sure that you're self-sufficient. But that can sometimes be a little bit of a short-sighted thinking,
Yeah.
so.
And even more so with me, I'm actually the third in a family of 4 siblings. So my oldest brother, unfortunately, he fell into gangs and drug use. So he didn't obviously go the college route.
Yeah.
My older sister, she became a teen mom. So she focused on her family. She didn't go the college route either. And so then when it came to me, the fact that I even graduated from high school was such a huge accomplishment, especially to my mom. I remember my mom crying because I was finally the first one to even finish high school. So that was such a big deal for us in my family that college just didn't even cross my mind, even though I had a teacher in high school tell me like, hey, you really should go to college. Like, you have this potential. But I guess since I hadn't really seen it, it wasn't a part of my life. I didn't know anyone that went to college. I didn't know anyone with a professional career. It just seemed like something like, yeah, right, that's not for me. Yeah. So it's like, I just need to get to work and start contributing to family life. And like I said, I moved out, so I had to take care of myself. So it was really about that at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that speaks to your initiative, because there's a lot of people who have gone through that same situation where they don't go to college. They see somebody who has, and instead of taking action, they might feel like, oh, well, it's too late for me, But the fact that you actually said, no, like, I can still do something about this. I can still go ahead and pursue this goal. I think that's incredible, and I think that's definitely laudable.
Thank you.
So you decided computer science.
Computer information systems.
Computer information systems. Yes. Okay. Computer information systems. And then you were the first person, as you said, in your family to go to college. So you didn't have somebody who was kind of teaching you the ropes and telling you, like, this is what it's like. Right. Yeah. So you got involved with SHPE. So what was your college career like before SHPE? And then tell me how it was when you got involved with SHPE.
So I think I was in school maybe 2 months, if that, before I joined SHPE, before I went to the first meeting.
So it was pretty early on.
So it was really early on in my educational path. And to be quite honest, when I first heard of SHPE, it wasn't promoted correctly. It was promoted more as a party scene, a party club, and we're just hanging out. And I wasn't really interested in the party scene because, like I said, I was not a traditional student. So I was focused. I'm here for school. Like, I just want to get my degree. I want to get my education and move on and get my career started. So I didn't really look into SHPE at first. It wasn't until I was tutoring some friends in my math class that one of them said, like, hey, it's lunchtime. And I was a broke college student. So I'm like, okay, I'll just wait for you guys here. I just won't eat. And they mentioned to me that there was a club that gave free pizza. And so they had it all planned out that, just grab the free pizza, sit by the back door, and then just slide out as soon as you finish eating. So I decided to tag along. So I went, I grabbed my pizza, I sat down. But coincidentally, the chapter president was doing a SHPE 101 presentation that day. And so she had the presentation up. And what caught my attention was when she put the map up of the United States. And then, it's broken down into the regions, and then showing how many chapters there were nationwide, showing how many IPC members were involved, showing the fact that they offer scholarships and they offer internship opportunities, that they offer all this professional development. And the way she described it, that's what hooked me in. So when my friends got up and tried to sneak out, they were trying to get me to follow them out the door, and I waved them at them like, nah, you guys go ahead if you want to, but I'm staying. Like, this just got my attention. And I was hooked from that moment. Wow. From that moment, I became the person like, okay, people didn't promote it right. I'm going to promote this right because this is amazing. And all I wanted to do was just share it with everyone possible so that everyone can know about it.
Yeah, definitely. So you joined SHPE early on in your academic career. So how did that help you fill in those gaps that you had from not having that mentor from your own family to help you out through college? What kind of information did they give you that helped you out?
Oh, man, I think it was just the support. I can't really say it was the information so much as, for me, it was the role models. Seeing so many Latinos, especially once I went to my first conference.
Right.
My first conference, again, I'm going to date myself, was at NLI before they called it NILA in 2002. And so going to this conference, it was hosted at UCLA, and seeing all these other Latino students also in engineering, and seeing all these professionals that were there to train us and mentor us, and that were also all Latinos, professional engineers working for IBM and all these big, huge companies, right? It just blew my mind away, and it made it real.
Yeah.
So it just made it something attainable.
Yeah, definitely. I know that it can feel, and then other people that I've interviewed have expressed that they feel a little bit lonely, being Hispanic, or they feel like they don't have somebody to look up to, especially sometimes you have women who are also like, it's a minority within a minority.
Yeah, indeed.
And so then having that community within SHPE kind of gives them those role models that are like, oh, they did it.
Absolutely.
They look like me. They come from where I come from a lot of times.
Yeah.
And so seeing them succeed, I think, gives others the inspiration for them to say like, well, if they did it, I can do it too.
It gives us hope.
Yeah.
It's really what it is. It's inspiring, but it gives us hope, and it makes it, like I said, it makes it real. Makes it seem that it's not something that's just a dream. It's not something that's just too far-fetched. So that's really what did it for me.
Yeah, definitely. So what was your academic career like? What was your college life like pursuing this STEM career?
Wow. So I think it was great to have other Latino friends. Once we built up the chapter, we were very small when I first joined, but once we built up the chapter and found other Latinos on campus, and just having that camaraderie and having that support, that peer support, and being in the same classroom with other Latinos, other Latinas that were also in my same classes, it really helped me stay focused. It helped me excel. I think SHPE, if anything, helped implant further the fact that no matter what I do, like, always do our absolute best. Yeah. We're representing not just ourselves. It's something I've always said when I'm at work or whatever I do. To be quite honest, like, given the way things are, like, I feel that responsibility that I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing my last name. I'm representing the color of my skin, even though I'm a light-skinned Latina, but still,
So am I. It's okay.
I'm a light Latina, but I'm representing, the Latino community. I'm representing Hispanics, because everyone has this preconceived notion of what a Latino is. They think of, a gardener, and no offense to those jobs or anything like that, but you don't think of engineers when you think of Latinos, especially here in the United States.
Yeah.
So knowing that that's what I represent, that really helped me stay focused, really helped me excel, and really helped me stay true to my path. And I've been in the industry for about 16 years now, I think. I'd have to do the math. I don't remember.
I can imagine that you faced a lot of challenges still within your college career, like being a first-generation college student. Are there any specific challenges that you went through that you overcame through perseverance?
I'd say it was having to work and continue to pay the bills and go to school at the same time. Yeah. That was probably the hardest, because I was a full-time student and I was a full-time employee. Wow. Trying to, like I said, survive and pay the bills. By that time, I did move out of my house when I was 18, but when I went back to college, coincidentally, I went back to live at home with my mom. My mom she was a single mom on and off most of my life. And so when she ended up alone again, I went back home to help mom out with the bills. So now I'm like, when I have to take care of my mom and I have to take care of the bills and help pay the mortgage, and at the same time, I'm trying to finish my educational career. So that was really like my thing. Like, I need to hurry up and get things done and get myself out there in a career that's going to be a good, well-paying job so that I can help take care of things.
And what advice do you have for people who might find themselves in that situation where they have to work and be a full-time student?
Oh, man. Balance it out, but more than anything, just don't give up. Just keep at it and find the support that you need, find organizations like SHPE, find mentors and role models like we have here in SHPE, and just stay the course. Just believe in yourself and know that you can absolutely do it, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how much you cry, no matter how stressful it is, just you're going to get there.
Yeah, and it's worth it, right? In the end.
Absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do want to hear about you graduating. How did your parents or your family react to that? And
I actually didn't really do anything of a big deal. Like
Yeah?
I finished my school and then I moved to Phoenix. I didn't even walk, didn't do anything. I was more like, all right, get to work.
Get to work.
Get to work.
I love that. That's very Hispanic. It's like, all right, mijo, let's go.
Yeah, get to work. I moved away from LA. I moved to Phoenix. And from there, I was just, okay, focus on my career.
And
So-
what was that first career like? What was that experience like of getting that first job?
It was interesting, like not having really, because SHPE has a lot of engineers, but not many in software. And especially back when I was a student.
Right.
There was far and few in between, or at least the ones that I knew. Everyone I know is like a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, aerospace engineer. It's amazing. They blow my mind. They're geniuses. But I didn't know too many software engineers. So it was interesting just to adapt myself and being the only Latina in the company, or at least it felt like it, being the one of very few women in my department. And I just found myself, this is funny, instead of building relationships with other engineers, which I did because I had to work, I found myself building relationships with the other Latinos that I would come across, and they just happen to be the maintenance crew or they happen to be the cleaning crew.
Right, yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, cool, another Latino. And they weren't engineers, they weren't in the software department, but I was still happy to meet them.
Yeah.
And I was still so excited to see them. And so that, even though they weren't in my role or on my team, it still helped me adapt to working there.
Yeah.
So it's weird, but it worked. I made it work.
No, yeah. We got to help each other out no matter what position
Yeah,
in life
absolutely.
we're at.
And I became really good friends with I was always working late. I was that overachieving first year, right? And so I was always at the office late. Which is how I became friends with the cleaning crew.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
You'd have to be there late to see them.
Yeah.
So a lot of SHPE members sometimes have trouble keeping up with SHPE once they reach that professional level. A lot of times it's like, I got to focus 100% on my job. I've done the whole SHPE thing during college, but you stayed on. So what made you keep going with SHPE?
Honestly, the fact that I felt like I had to give back. So if I start from the very beginning, back to that meeting that I told you that I didn't walk out of,
Yeah.
immediately after, as soon as the elections came up, I ran and was elected vice president of my chapter. Then immediately after that, I ran and was elected as president of my chapter. Then immediately after that, the RSR that got elected in 2003 asked me to be her vice RSR. And then after that, I was vice RSR again the year after that, but then that RSR happened to resign. So I stepped up. He resigned maybe 4 months into it. And so I stepped up maybe a little bit less than halfway through. And so it was just more like a progression of things.
Right.
And the more I got involved, the more passionate I became about it, the more people I met, the more at home I felt with it, the more embraced I felt with it. And the more I felt I had to make it known and help it survive and help SHPE help more people like me in the future. And so just getting drawn in and just giving it my all, because I felt that SHPE gave me everything I have. Obviously not everything, but it just such a huge impact in my life that I just had to do it. It was more like a calling almost. Like I didn't think of anything else other than that. It was work and SHPE. That was my life for a very long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And I really appreciate that like selfless giving attitude that you had, and spirit really, because it's very easy to say, well, I got the help. I'm where I want to be. I'm just going to keep moving forward in life. But the fact that you thought beyond that and you realized I also can have the opportunity to give back to other people who are coming after me.
Even if it's not me directly, just the organization. Just help the organization continue being as strong as it is, help the organization grow, help the organization stay around for another 50 years to continue helping our first generation Latinos, especially the people who may not have that guidance, may not have that role model within their immediate family, and giving them that familia once they do get to college and giving them those role models that they too can make it.
Yeah, definitely. So what was the first convention that you went to, the first like national
The
convention?
first national convention was not called a convention yet.
Wow.
It was called National Technical Career Conference, and it was in 2003. This is back when we still held them in the winter, January of 2003 in Nolens, Louisiana.
Wow.
So that was my first national conference.
How does that first national conference compare with 2023 national convention?
Ooh, aside from the massive size now, it's way different in the sense of there's multiple tracks now. There's multiple conferences now, right? We have the SHPTINAS track, we have the Pride track, we have the diversity track. We have so many different aspects that gives us a much more well-rounded approach of what the world really looks like, and not just the straight engineering line that we used to have before. And so seeing that progression and coming into this conference now, I'll be honest, I haven't attended a conference since 2018. So seeing it now is like absolutely mind-blowing. It's nostalgic, it's heartwarming, and it's just absolutely amazing. It really is.
So this is actually my first convention. So this is all this
No.
stuff. Yeah, is normal for me. Like I hadn't seen any of this. So when I love hearing people like yourself who have been with SHIP for a long time talk about it, because for me it's like this is the normal, right? Like this is my first convention, so this is what the bar is set, right?
Yeah.
For SHIP.
If I remember correctly, I want to say there was I remember from 2006, I remember asking one of the staff members how many people were in that Star Awards gala, and they were like, "Oh, there's probably about 5,000 or 6,000 people here." And back then, I thought that was wow. I can't believe there's that many Latino engineers in the country.
Right.
And so to come here and see 12,400 of us is like, wow. Like all I can say is just wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned how you had seen the conference change into the convention and the differences in that. How have you seen the organization change throughout that time as well?
Oh, man. So a lot of things. A lot of the things, one of the main things that comes to mind was the merger of the SHIP Foundation and SHIP Inc. is what we called it back
That's
then,
right.
the 501c3. So seeing that merger was, I was part of that regional leadership team. So that in itself is completely different. The way the board is structured is completely different. Obviously, back then we had the national president and we had all the elected officers that were part of the board, and now we're not following that structure. Now we have a board chair, and we have all these people that are not necessarily elected. We have a few elected, but we have appointed executives with the experience that we need to run a multi-million-dollar corporation, which is what we are now, right? So seeing that is obviously a huge part of it. But I think one of the things I'm proudest to see, even though I'm not directly involved, is seeing the voice and the involvement we have at the government level now. Seeing that we're now on these committees and councils, and they're going to the White House. We as an organization have become such a powerhouse, not just at the student level anymore. We're literally at the national government level now. And that's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I feel like I've learned about SHIP and being able to grow to that size and have that influence to be able to go to the White House, be invited to the White House,
Yeah.
is that really the fact that SHIP is growing helps all Hispanic engineers, because we know that SHIP is going to advocate for all Hispanic engineers in the
Yeah.
nation. And so I think a growing SHIP is a powerful and good thing for all Hispanic engineers.
100% agree, yes.
Yeah. So have there been any benefits from staying with SHIP in your professional career?
Absolutely. Everything that I did as a regional leader, as a national leader, all of the plannings that I've been, when I was a regional student representative for Region 2, we had the strategic planning sessions. They taught us how to, set strategic goals, how to do a SWOT analysis, how to structure things appropriately, how to do agendas properly. Robert's Rules of Orders is something I've never forgotten. And so I've been able to transfer that exactly to my job. My presentation skills, my public speaking skills, my influential skills, which is really leadership skills, right? All of that transfers exactly to what I'm doing at work. Especially now that I'm managing. I actually had one of the VPs in my company approach me one day and asked me, like, sincerely, like, have you done this before? I thought you were a new manager.
Yeah.
And it kind of took me by surprise. And I said, you know what? Yes, I have done this before. And I told him about SHPE and everything that I've done with SHPE. And he was like, that explains a lot. That explains everything. Because you just walk into a room and you have this confidence. You do presentations flawlessly. You always have an agenda ahead of time. You're always well prepared. And it just speaks volumes to the fact that you have done this before. It's obvious. And to me, I never really put that together, that my SHPE life and my SHPE work would transfer into my, my actual work. Even though everyone talks about it, I never felt I was doing that until he called it out. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, I have done this before. And it's all thanks to SHPE.
That's amazing. And I think you make a really good point is that there's always purpose to the SHPE activities and the SHPE events. And all of that is to make the Hispanic engineers more successful and gain those skills that they might not gain elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times, people in general, not just Hispanic engineers, are given these roles for the first time, like manager.
Yeah.
And they haven't experienced that. They haven't done anything to prepare for that. And it's just kind of like a trial by fire. Like you either crash and burn or you do end up powering through it and succeeding. But if you have that foundation laid by those SHPE activities or SHPE, events and workshops that help you get those skills, you're much more likely to succeed when you're given those
100%.
roles. So.
And I never really quite, like I said, put that together until that vice president of my company called it out.
Yeah.
And was like, it's obvious that you've done this before. And the only thing I can relate it to is SHPE.
Yeah, definitely. Is there something that you think you'd want to express to new SHPE members? Because obviously, as you know, we get a lot of new SHPE members that sign up for national convention. Is there something that you would want to share with them in regarding their new membership or staying with SHPE for a long time as you have?
I would just say networking. That networking is absolutely, I know we talk about it all the time, right? It's the core of what started SHPE to begin with. But it's still true to who we are. The more you put yourself out there, the more you put yourself out of your comfort zone, and the more you really force yourself to talk to people and introduce yourself and work on your elevator speech, right?
Yeah.
And work on all of those soft skills that you're not learning in your classroom, because I never learned any of these skills in my classroom. My classrooms were coding, C++, system analysis and design, working with databases. Like, I learned all that in the classroom. But these skills that SHPE teaches us here, they're priceless. And there's a lot of, like you said, people learn it on the job or pay thousands of dollars to maybe learn it in some sort of conference similar to this.
Yeah.
So this is what we literally have at our fingertips here. And this is literally what SHPE offers to us. So my best advice to a new student and a new member is don't be afraid to put yourself out there and just go all in.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us on the podcast. I really appreciate it, you sharing your story. I know that it's very personal, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
one thing that I do appreciate is that we have so many members that are still sometimes first generation, second generation, or the first members of their family that are going, graduating high school, going to college,
Yeah.
much less, being an engineer, right? Because we know that's hard. We know that it's not an easy path to be an engineer.
Definitely is not.
But
I'm sorry to cut you off,
No,
but
no,
I
go
just
ahead.
had someone yesterday. I was talking with Valerie Valenzuela. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I was talking with Valerie, and she pointed out, she's like, you have a lot of firsts. So, like you mentioned, all of that, first to graduate from high school, first to even go to college, first to have a professional career in my immediate family. But also even within SHPE, I actually chartered the first high school chapter.
Wow.
And I was on the team of the first regional junior representatives as well. And the chants that everyone hears, that started my year when I was RSR.
Really?
So Region 2 started the chants, the whose house, whose house. Region 2 started the chants when I was RSR. And remember I told you that I stepped up to fill a vacant role?
Yeah.
So it started that year. And the following year when we were at NELA, we kept our chants going, of course. And, we're excited, we're enthusiastic, whose house, whose house. And I remember we had a meeting with all of the regional representatives at the time. Anita Ramirez was our national student representative at the time. But we all got in the room, and all the other regional representatives were like, we need a chant.
Yeah.
Like, Region 2 can't be the only ones to do this. So we sat there and we brainstormed, and everyone came up with their own chant. And that year, we introduced all of the chants in all of the regions at Region 2. And this was in NILA of 2005. And so to see that still going is awesome. To see the SHPE Junior chapters now, the way they've grown, and we have a structured program for our SHPE Junior chapters, and we have regional junior representatives, still continuing to go to guide those high school chapters to get them into college, right, and to get them going on their career path. And having known personally some of those SHPE Junior babies that are now professionals. There's one that I hold very near and dear to my heart. She was one of the first SHPE Junior chapters that I met. Mariela Resendes, shout out to you. I called her my SHPE baby when she was in high school, and she went to ASU, and she graduated, and now she's a professional. Now she has a family. It's like, my SHPE baby's having a baby. It's like, what is going on? But at the same time, it's like so amazing to see that these SHPE Junior chapters are now all over the country, and that we're official. We're now in middle schools. We have this, the SHPE STEM nights that we do virtually now to be able to provide more access to Equipando Padres.
Yeah.
All of these programs, like I said, are all new to me, but it's amazing, and it's very heartwarming to know that I helped lay the foundation for all of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I personally do want to give you thanks
Thank you.
for doing that, because it does take one dedicated person to get the ball rolling, and the fact that you were able to do that for those different programs, I think it's incredible, because I can only imagine the amount of lives you've changed because of that action that you took.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that I'm sure are extremely grateful as well.
Yeah, and over the years, I've actually received one memory pops up immediately right now as we're talking about this. I received a random phone call years later from a young man that was a student at my chapter, and he called me one day, and I guess he was just having a moment of reflection, and he was doing well. He was an engineer. He was doing well in his career, and he called me one day just out of the blue. I hadn't heard from him in a couple of years, and he's like, "Hey, Wendy, just wanted to tell you thank you. Like, you made such a huge impact in my life, and I know there's others like me out there, but I don't know if any of them have ever called you to tell you thank you. So I just wanted to tell you thank you." And that just meant everything to me, and it makes all of this worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Definitely. Well, thank you once again. Really,
Thank
I
you.
loved hearing your story, and I hope that we can have a second interview, because I think I could pick your brain about a lot of different things. But I really do appreciate you making the time to be here with us today, and all the things that you've done, accomplished, and have done for SHPE, because it's really made an impact. A lot of times we feel like the things that we do doesn't matter, but it's very clear that
matters.
the things you've done,
Absolutely matters. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate being invited for this. This was an honor. I was surprised and very touched to see the email invite. So thank you very much for even doing this. I think it's awesome. I'm very much looking forward to seeing all of the interviews.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.